The quick thing I want to start is just to make sure that everybody thinks they're in the right place. So we're here to talk about building a global movement, and if we're going to define like for what purpose, it's to redefine success in business, so that one day all companies will compete not just to be the best in the world, but to be the best for the world. So not just worrying about what they do, but how they do it and for whom they do it. And so we have three incredible entrepreneurs up here with us today, two of them from Chile, one from Kenya, or from Colorado via Kenya, and 40 other countries on the path. And so you're going to hear a little bit about them just to ground us in reality, so it doesn't start, sort of the whole conversation doesn't stay at sort of this sort of meta level. But I think one of the things that's useful is you're inundated with stories of individual entrepreneurs all the time doing incredible things. And so the question is sort of, what's the bigger story going on among them? So that's one of the things we want to sort of talk about today. So the basic format is I'm going to do a quick introduction of each of the three panelists or conversationalists so that they can get a little bit deeper and not just do the quick bio read. I'll take care of that for them. We're going to see just a quick, short, like 2.5-minute video to sort of ground us in the reality of what these things are doing visually, and then have a conversation, hopefully, among us and with you. Does that sound fair? Great. So with that, if you could just flick to the next slide, because I don't have a clicker up here, at least not that I see. Great. So our first entrepreneur is Gonzalo Munoz. And Gonzalo does about 17 different things, like most, sort of serial entrepreneurs. And like many, Gonzalo started off working in traditional business, in this case in the food industry in South America, and was CEO of a couple of different companies in South America whose names wouldn't mean anything to you, so I won't bother with them, but they were of significant scale. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. He then sort of got the social entrepreneurship bug and translated those skills into some highly recognized work, becoming an Ashoka Fellow in 2011, doing some good sustainable ag work with a group called Fruticola San Pablo and Comona. He's also, most interestingly to me, is not just starting individual companies like Triciclos, which is the company that you see a little bit on above you, but Gonzalo has sort of not just the genes of an entrepreneur, but the genes of sort of a networker and a movement builder. And he seems to always find himself not just trying to figure out what he can do, but what he can do with others. And so it's one of the things that I think makes him a really important person for this conversation. Triciclos is a culture change company that's masquerading as a recycling business. And I'm going to let Gonzalo talk a little bit more about that. But if you look at their website and you hear Gonzalo talk, he talks about a cultural change in Chile and South America. And I think it's interesting to think about what our work is together is not just about delivering a technology to solve a problem, but actually getting at some root issues around cultural change. So I'm looking forward to hearing Gonzalo talk a little bit about that. I guess that's me now. The next slide is Nat Robinson. I'll let you guess which one he is in that picture. You get a free prize if you figure it out. So Nat Robinson is a native Coloradan, so from not too far away, but has spent the last number of years traveling, working around the world, been to 40 different countries, and for now has landed in Kenya, where he's doing some incredible work and calling Muhammad Yunus all kinds of bad names. And talking about how he's built a better mousetrap for microfinance. I'm being a little bit provocative, but that's sort of the point. Jehudi Kalimo has won numerous awards, and one of the things I find quite interesting is microfinance is not actually something that's new, right? It's been around for 30 plus years, no need to explain what it is here. Its sort of godfather has won a Nobel Peace Prize, so it's not something that's considered today to be particularly innovative. And yet last year, Jehudi won the Schwab Social Entrepreneur of the Year award. And so I'm curious, as I hope you are, what innovation would make a 30-year-old idea that's already been replicated 6,000 times be worthy of considered to be an Entrepreneur of the Year? So Nat will tell us a little bit about that. And lastly, but saving the best for last, because he's got that great sort of Janet Jackson microphone on from delivering a neat talk somewhere else, is Alfredo Zolesi, who, while not a doctor, is clearly the smartest person on the panel. And mostly I get that from reading. When I look at his bio, I am scared to death. So he's an engineer and an industrial designer, which means he can think with both sides of the brain really quickly, unlike most of us. And he has won awards for his inventions and designs from Russia, from Jeb Bush in Florida, from the Nestle Corporation, and really the Nestle Prize for the creation of shared value, all around his innovative, integrated, objective model of design about how to systematize the creation of innovations, and in this case, particularly innovations that serve the poor. Right now, he's training his considerable design and engineering skills on designing clean water solutions to reach the billion people on the planet that don't have access to clean drinking water, a problem that's causing the deaths of almost 1.5 million kids every year. And so I think we're all in your debt for focusing your energy and your considerable brain power on that particular issue. But what scares me most of all is if any of you disagree with anything Alfredo says, he is an avid rugby player. He has a black belt in Taekwondo, and he's a marathoner, so you can run, but you can't hide. He's gonna get you. And so we're all excited to hear a little bit about Alfredo. And so I thought it would be useful to start just by showing a quick short-minute video. And since we're talking about a global movement, we have a Chilean entrepreneur in Alfredo Zolesi who is solving a problem beginning in Chile, but with global aspirations to serve poor people without access to clean drinking water in Africa, being acknowledged by a UK global news organization. So right away, we have sort of a bit of a global story. And so we're just going to watch this couple-minute segment just to ground us in reality.
Rosa Reyes lives in San Jose de Cerrillos, a small camp on the outskirts of Chile's capital, Santiago. She says for years, the people inhabiting this camp have suffered from diseases due to the poor quality of their drinking water. But now, thanks to a new inexpensive water purification system developed by scientists at the Chilean Advanced Innovation Center, Reyes says she and her neighbors are no longer suffering.
It's cleaner. Our kids aren't getting sick. It's easier for the elderly who would otherwise have to boil their water.
The system works by compressing contaminated water and then feeding it into a chamber, where a quick change in pressure and exposure to an electrical field converts it into a plasma, a state of matter similar to gas. In a plasma state, the water is ionized, killing 100% of the bacteria and microbes it carried. According to Alfredo Zolesi, a scientist at the center, the system can purify 35 liters of water in just 5 minutes, using the same amount of energy that it takes to run a light bulb. Zolesi says since it was installed in September, the results have been remarkable.
Bueno, la experiencia fue mejor de la que nosotros la anticipamos.
It went better than we had anticipated. Not only did the people have water, which one could imagine is a basic right and necessity, what it really affected was these people's dignity, the ability to feel that they have water available and can live like a normal person.
Agua disponible y vivir como una persona normal.
Julian Ugarte helped develop the system. He says one of its greatest benefits is its low cost, making it a sustainable solution for millions of people now living in poverty.
Se necesitan ideas nuevas y no ideas obsoletas. O sea, la tecnología puede generar
We need new ideas, not obsolete ones. The technology could have a tremendous impact on 63% of the world that makes less than $1,500 a year that nobody considers, which is also the largest market in the world. So you can also get business, though per person it might not be so useful, but could be en masse. And this opens the possibility not only in this centre, but for everyone who can generate a successful enterprise and solve problems facing the poorest populations.
de las poblaciones más pobres.
The United Nations estimates that 1 in 6 people have inadequate access to safe drinking water. Ugarte hopes their plasma purifier could dramatically reduce that number. Rosa Reyes says she prays that the benefits of the purification system will extend far beyond her small camp.
I hope in Africa they get the same privilege we've had here, and they get purifiers just like we did.
The developers of the system hope to answer Rosa Reyes' prayers. They are currently working on a second prototype that will hopefully reduce the cost of water purification even further, making clean water for the planet's poorest a reality. Ben Gruber, Reuters.
Great. So I would applaud. So I guess my question, Alfredo, I'd sort of open up with you. So you're helping us set the stage with a real life solution to a real life problem. Is of all the things that you could have done, why did you decide to do this? I think maybe just start there. And why? So why this? And also, why are you here today? You've come a long way to be a part of this community here at SOCAP, and I'm just curious, with all the things you've got going on, all the choices you could have made, why'd you choose to do AIC, and why'd you choose to spend time here at SOCAP?
Well, you make 4 questions.
That's true.
Okay. Why I did this technology, it's an evolving process. I worked for different projects before, creating a system for working to recover oil in the oil industry. Then also I worked and invented a thing that improved efficiency in smelters for the mining. So one day I realized that I was somehow creating big things that are impacting large corporations. And I was failing in capturing the value for me. I was not making money, even though I was creating amazing things. So I thought maybe I'm looking in the wrong problem. If I was given with this talent to create things, it's not to recover oil or to improve smelters. So I decided that using the knowledge that I accumulate through the process working with the oil and the smelters, I decided to try to create a plasma generator that was a device that we were trying to create for a refinery, an oil refinery. And a plasma generator is not something that you can buy on eBay, but we managed to create that thing, and it worked. So once we realized that we can initiate plasma from a very low quality diesel, I decided to change absolutely the focus of my life. And what I did is initiate plasma, but replace the oil for water coming from a sewage. And
So actually from sewage?
yes, it's a very dirty water. And of course you have to filter because you cannot put through the nozzles the solids, but it's a very high load, bacteriological load. And we managed to create that, and it worked. So once we have this technology, we decided that we have to innovate, not only in the technology, but in the way to ensure the adoption rate of the technology. A technology is only successful when it is adopted. And if I want to target the poor people, the market forces are not enough. They will never see the technology. So I decided that I do not only want to show the world that I can create plasma starting with water coming from the sewage, I also want to prove that advanced science and poverty do talk. Also that creating a world or global movement is related with what I'm doing, because I also want to prove, and it's a fact, that knowledge is a commodity. And also, and that was a key decision, instead of taking the technology to a lab or to Silicon Valley or to Siemens in Germany, I decided to approach Julian Ugarte from an NGO in Chile and said, hey, look for me a very poor community that have problems with water, and without asking permission to anyone. We just install it there. So the people who want and who travel from different countries and corporations to see the system working, they were forced to see the poverty and to see the impact that we were creating to that small community. So that is what we did. We decided that poor people, they don't want to be pointed as the poor. They want to be accepted as part of the solution. So we installed the system there, and now we're working in the scalability.
Sorry, say that again?
Scalability, how to scale up this worldwide. And we're making good progress on that. So now turning to the other question, what I'm doing here. Reuters put those pictures or that video of those little boys. Well, we are privileged. We're here. We decided to be here. We want to be here. At least we want to try to create this global movement. Being such or so privileged, I think that it's a must to try to do this and to share what we are doing with others. So that explains why I'm here.
Thank you. Like, one of the things I'd love to follow up on is I don't know whether it was the narrator used the word, and then I think you used the word again, which is about dignity and about not doing something for the poor, but perhaps doing something with the poor, right? Or with people that you're trying to serve. And I'm curious, as you think about scaling the technology and the challenge of adoption and scale, how those that you're trying to serve are involved, maybe not in the development of the technology, but in the adaptation of it, or in the adoption of it, or in some way in the business model that you're creating. We haven't talked about this before, so sorry to spring it on you, but like, it just occurs to me that part of dignity is being a participant in something and not a recipient of something. And so I'm just curious how that shows up, because the word dignity sort of is beautiful, but prominent in that piece and in what you've said.
I'm not sure if I'm asking exactly your question, but I will answer what I want to answer, okay?
Always fine.
Okay. If we do want to affect the quality of life of people, it's very easy. Sometimes it's just a smile. If we want to make this globally, we have to come up with a different idea. We must innovate in how to do that. If we're targeting the people who have no buying power, we have to come up with something really innovative. So we start thinking about this. How can we activate demand for a technology that is targeting the poorest? And we came up with an idea. What we did, there are many problems today. And this movement, it was created as an answer, I think, of the problems that we're facing in the world. Society is sick. Something is absolutely wrong. Something is not fair. Something is really wrong. So some companies use 50, 70 liters of water to produce 1 liter of a drinking soda.
I think one of the people from whom we received an award does a little bit of that.
I don't know. No comments. Others, to produce 1 pair of jeans, use 11,000 liters of water. So in the future, there will be a big problem. Companies, large corporations will disappear. Today, 1/3 of the population have no access to clean water. In 2025, it's going to be 2/3 of the population will have no access to clean water. So how can we be large corporations selling jeans, using the water to produce jeans or to produce drinking sodas? So something had to be changed. And we create a model where we approach a very big corporation and we said, look, we install telemetry to our system. Every single liter that is clean goes to the network for the internet or go to a satellite, and then it's downloaded into the web page of this large corporation. what happens? That corporation is really generating water credits or a big and effective replenishment program, but in a different way. They have to buy the units and give the units to the poor. So they are ensuring the sustainability of their company, their corporation, but they are doing it in a different way. They are doing it by doing good. They are measuring not only in liters of water recovered, but also in life saved.
Right.
So this is not just dignity, it's fairness.
Thank you. So Nat, I wanted to turn to you for a sec and sort of pivot on that same question around dignity of those you're serving. You're a white guy from Colorado, got an MBA in Tennessee, and you're working with small rural farmers in Kenya. How does that work?
Thanks, Jay. Well, it's interesting. When I came, I had the same thoughts on this. Foreigner coming in, no one's going to trust me, no one's going to believe me. Coming in to help, there's a lot of history of that in Africa. And what I realized is that actually the smallholder farmers and the rural populations in Kenya tended to trust me more than their fellow countrymen. In Kenya, there's a lot of corruption. So coming in with that thought to help and also being much more, I think, transparent than a lot of Kenyans, I was able to get a lot of credibility early on, which I think has really helped be successful out there.
And you described, I was joking about it in the introduction, that you said, you know, we're like the quick elevator pitch is we're microfinance, only better. And so I'm curious, like, what that means.
What's better? No, it's Muhammad Yunus, you know, certainly an inspiration to me, but I was a bit kind of questioning microfinance model. I think a lot of the world is looking at some of the research that's been coming out, some of the stories, questioning the model, I think, as far as impact and improving the lives of the poorest. And to be honest, when I got into this line of work, I was kind of volunteering in Kenya, helping an investment fund find investments, and came across this incubator that had a new model for microfinance. It was a Kenyan institution, and they were using credits to purchase assets and productive assets in agriculture. So
as opposed to traditional microfinance, which would do what?
They would give a loan. A lot of them don't really know where that goes to. It's working capital. It's buying seeds, fertilizer, inputs, all useful work. But it's at the end of the year, once that loan's done, it's hard to say where that money went or what happened. And usually those people come back for loans. So it's just kind of that cycle each year where they're stuck in. Whereas if you're financing an asset, and a productive asset, one that generates income, once that loan is done, that person is still left with that asset and can continue to generate income and to build wealth. It also acts as collateral. So in traditional microfinance, that person defaults, they have to go to their group members who then have to shell out and pay for that person. Right. Or if it's more like a bank, they go for collateral on the home and savings and put that person even more in poverty. Or in some cases, they go to commit suicide. It's a really strong pressure. Whereas us, if we're financing that asset, that's the collateral. So in the very worst case, if they default on their loans, we can just recover that asset and leave them in the same position they were before they took the loan.
And you guys converted from, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, from a nonprofit to a for-profit organization. Yep. And so what was that transition about? Was it just about access to capital, or what was the key need there?
Yeah, I think you've seen a lot of microfinance groups do that. They start off as an NGO, as a nonprofit, as a social focused, very social focused organization, needing more capital, because in microfinance we need a lot of money to grow. So being able to spin off to become a for-profit and then access the commercial markets, that was the thought behind it. I think being very careful on how that's done, I think that's really pushed organizations to be to really maximize profits, which is kind of can hurt the client. So we've sourced investment from social investors, group like the Acumen Fund, Grameen Foundation, Kiva was a big supporter, and I think they're
Grassroots Business Fund.
Grassroots Business Fund, because they see this model as unique, as different. It's not just this traditional microfinance.
And how many folks are you serving today with the asset-backed or asset-based microfinance model?
Right now we have about 7,000 farmers who are working with us, and another 7,000 who are involved in the program waiting to take. And
your goal is to reach 100,000 within the next 3 years. How does that work?
Yep, so it's doubling pretty much every year. We'll finish this year at about 11,000 and then get to 24, 25 next year. And we've seen this in Kenya, this scale, this ability to grow, because the demand is so big. There's a huge market out there.
But I guess my question was more like, so what is it that you need to scale? What are the barriers to that? Is it just building your own organization? Is it the distribution side? Is it getting capital to loan out? Like, where are the
Sure, and that's
pressure
right.
points?
That's the big key, and I think that's what I'm not a doctor or an engineer or anything like that. I'm a consultant actually, not any background in any of this. But I think that's the hardest challenge is to go from a great idea, a great technology, and then scale it, and then grow it out there, and to really hit a lot of people. And that's what we're doing. So we're applying a lot of those business techniques to do that. Our past constraint was capital, access to capital. Now that we have that, it's just our own internal staff, our processes, our operations, and our IT. And we're investing a lot in that, using technologies like the Salesforce platform to scale and to grow. So because we're in very deep rural areas, so technology has really become a big part of what we do.
Cool. And so, Gonzalo, I want to turn to you for a second. We talked about sort of technology and financial innovation, which are typically seen as fairly impersonal things. And you talk about cultural change with something as mundane as recycling. And I've been with you in Chile and at those puntos limpios and seen the 20 different types of recycling and everything, and it's very like tangible. It doesn't feel like a cultural change, it feels like a recycling center. And so talk to me a little bit about how you see what you're doing differently than someone from the outside might see it as a recycling effort.
Good. Well, our perspective is that solving the waste problem in the world is not enough about taking care of that black bag that you produce in your home or just separating 2 or 3 different types of materials. It has to do a lot about tackling the problem of the increasing consumption trends. I mean, the problem is how much do we ask nature to produce in order to keep on moving the wheel as we know it. And that point crosses in the moment when you decide to buy and you decide to award a certain company and you decide to dispose your materials in a certain way. And in many places, are here in San Francisco as well, or in Europe, people just put their materials quite separated, but they do not have the opportunity of really asking themselves the question of, this that I bought, was needed or not? Right. Should I be able to ask myself certain questions when I decide to buy a certain?
And so how does that sort of upstream thinking show up at a clean point, at a puntos limpios?
Right. Our recycling stations are not only a place where people can bring and reduce 90% of their waste, but also a place where they will receive education. 100% of the time, the puntos limpios are operated by somebody coming from a vulnerable situation. Most of them were streetway speakers, or some of them ex-prostitutes that take care of the punto limpio. They increase their level of education. We train them as not only operators of the punto limpio, but also as environmental educators, and they will be able to show you how your consumption decisions were good or bad, and they will encourage you to change your habits, and we have obtained a lot of information. So we know that one usual visitor will bring 2 or 3 materials. Actually, the average is over 8.5 different types of materials, and therefore we're obtaining a lot of information that will also help companies to understand that conversation between the operator of the punto limpio and the responsible citizenship, the citizen that's going there, in order to increase the level of consciousness.
And so Triciclos is, you're creating sort of economic opportunity and advancement for sort of marginalized populations. You mentioned prostitutes, street pickers, sort of street people. You're creating sort of a waste reduction, pulling stuff out of the waste stream, in some cases upcycling things, and you're creating an opportunity to engage consumers around consumption, sort of the main thing that's driving the whole ship over the cliff. And so I don't know if those are the 3 things in Triciclos, but those are.
We also
there's more.
Yeah, we're also
it slices, it dices.
Economic value by creating some recycling plants in areas of our country where they will be just going to the dump.
Yep.
So we are creating economic value for those materials, mainly plastics, in different very, very apart areas of our country, and actually in different countries of South America. We're also creating brand value. We understand that the brands, the companies that produce the waste, the final waste, are the responsible for those materials. So they are actually being also pressed by the governments to be able to take care of that. Right. So for those companies, we are creating a certify. We take care of your garbage, so you pay us, and you put your brands in the Punto Limpio. So there's the moment where the companies are not only creating traditional CSR or their shared value, but also taking real care of their impact.
And how many Puntos Limpios are there now in Chile?
Actually 22.
22?
Yeah, we'll finish the year with more than 30, and starting in Colombia, Argentina, and Brazil as well.
Wow. And so with all that going on, I want to now sort of take it out of the individual efforts and talk about sort of what links you guys or doesn't. And so with all the stuff that you're doing with Triciclos, why do you also spend time with chairing the Aconcagua Summit to bring together global leaders to talk about humanizing globalization? Why are you one of the founders of Sistema B, who's trying to build the B Corp movement in South America? Like, you seem to be plenty busy with other things, but you're spending time also doing things at sort of a network level, and I'm just wondering why you think that's necessary.
Well, you know, we started the four founders of Triciclos. We were kind of intoxicated by the traditional model, by the negative externalities of what the usual traditional companies create. So we were wondering if it was possible to create a company that would be able only to create positive externalities. And we started Triciclos with that thought that we were like inventing the wheel, and 2 years later we found B Corps and was like checking the boxes and discovering a real world where these type of companies were getting together. We became the first B Corp in South America, and that would have been a very stupid thing to do, to leave it just like that, because just having one B Corp would not change the real problem. And we see that the problem is not only by letting the traditional social sector to be able to scale and increase, but to be able to impact the heart of one of the problems that is in the traditional business model. How do we encourage that sector of the society to be able to understand the social problems and to be able to see the huge opportunities that are in there?
And so there's a quote on your website that I love, which is, and I'm sure it's butchered by Google Translate, so I'm sure it sounds much better in Spanish than in English, but it's basically how it translates to me is, when you identify a problem, you have two choices. You can either go crazy or you can take over. Right. And so I see how how do you relate that quote to what you're doing with Sistema B?
That's absolutely the thing. I mean, it's not real. Becoming crazy will be like taking also part of the problem, right? To solve the problem. It's the real translation would be like making a fool of you, would say hacerse el tonto, hacerse el boludo in different languages in Spain, but in Spanish. But the real thing is that when you identify this type of problem, if you want to be part of the solution, then you have to embrace a lot of people and be able to help many people to be part of the movement. And that means also that the mission is over you. So if I'm not the one that will be able to solve the problem that I'm wanting to solve, but you will be able to do so, then I will help you, right? So it's about putting people together to be able to see the problem and to really take off the masks and go through that. And
so have there been any benefits or any changes for you for Triciclos since you became a B Corp? Like you already got accolades from the president, and you already had plenty of people knowing what you were doing. And so why would you want to be a part of a B Corp movement if you're already doing this?
Well, the first thing is that it has been very surprising. When we started, we showed what we were doing, what were ideas, and people would say, like, what is your organization? Is it an NGO? Is it a traditional company? Are you coming from the government, from Mars? And we would say we're a traditional company, and they would say, then there's something rare here. And I won't trust you, because traditional companies, they're not really good. They won't do this that you're showing me. And actually what's going on in our country is amazing, that when we have that situation in a meeting, somebody else, a third party, will raise their hand and say they are B Corp, and that's it. And that would settle the conversation. People will trust. I mean, it's so important to put this line, this frame about bringing all the good stuff together to be able to make it visible and credible.
Yep.
And that's what Sistema B and B Lab and the BCorps are creating, from my perspective, in all the world. Bringing all the good stuff together to be able to show it to the world, not only to the consumers, but also to the employees, to the entrepreneurs, and to the governments.
Yeah.
To be able to say, that's the thing that we need, and we have to power that.
And Alfredo, thank you. Alfredo, you were one of the first companies to become an Empresas B, a certified B Corp in South America after Triciclos. And you're even at an earlier stage of development in the business, when most entrepreneurs should be focused on nothing other than like getting the business model going. And so I'm curious for you why at that early fragile stage of your business, why you would take the time or be interested in the B Corp certification, when it's not like anybody needs to figure out whether you're doing stuff that's a benefit to the world. You're doing a technology that's about clean drinking water for the poor. There's not a whole lot of confusion about what that might be. So why are you doing this?
Well, being a fragile company, who told that? I am. Always.
Yeah, always.
My company never get into a different stage. It's a normal. We are inventing things. We work with full uncertainty, with a full risk. So if I'm spending the time trying to do impossible things, why don't we link it to this? Because we discover something that is important. I want to be part of the Sistema B or the B Corps because we develop a model that shows not only that we can relate the technologies I said with an advanced science with poverty. What we discover is that we can accelerate the fight against poverty. Too much money, too much efforts, too many efforts are being used on this, and the impact is not there. So applying innovation to the way how people relate with the world, it makes a difference. And we want to share our experience and our model with the B Corps. So the model to be used with other people.
Thanks. And Nat, you came to the B Corp thing sort of through the back door, right? Is you were an investee of Grassroots Business Fund and also the Acumen Fund, both of whom are Gears Pioneer fund managers. And so you had to go through an assessment process as part of their getting Gears Pioneer status. And so you basically went for like the corporate colonoscopy, against your own will, right? And then you came out the other side, pardon, that was an unintentional pun there, and said, we've gone through this, we don't need to, we've already got our capital, et cetera. We're over here in Kenya, no one knows what the heck a B Corp is. Why did you decide to do that?
Sure. Thanks for the imagery, too.
Yeah, pleasure.
And to back up too, we weren't forced to do Gears.
Okay.
It was something that Grassroots Business Fund said, look, this is new, this is a beta test, we're interested in somehow standardizing how social impact is organized, measured, and kind of seen globally. Acumen, this was a bit after they came in, so a little bit later when we did it. So we as Juhudi have never really been pushed to do a lot of this from our investors and funders. We took that internal approach that this story is different. This what we're doing is really different than anyone else in microfinance and in Kenya. But how do we tell that? How do you quantify it? And Gears was kind of the first step in saying, well, there's at least something out there, some sort of framework that's developing. Let's go with it. Let's push it. So as a Gears beta tester, we went through that whole process and then realized that we could then qualify as a B Corp to get certification for a B Corp. But what did that mean in Kenya? Do we have to change our legal status? I thought this was a U.S.-based thing, and so we said, well, let's go with this anyway. But I think that's still what it does, is it signals to the market, to everyone else, that what we are doing is unique, and that there is a value to that now we can start to measure and compare across other B corporations, plus to be involved in the community as was measured before. I mean, I think that is a big value for us. It's a third party outside evaluated assessment about kind of what we are, what we do. And I think that was really valuable for us. So
Right.
we're driving this internally.
And so tell me, like, why does the third party validation or verification or that type of thing, why does that matter?
Yeah,
it seems like it would just be a total pain in the ass.
It was, trust me. It definitely is. And I think that's, because of that though, there's not a lot of people pushing for it. But there's also a lot of people saying we're doing great things, this is good. I mean, it's fantastic. But when it comes down to evaluating that and comparing it across the board, I think that's why it's important to bring in that third party, that outside perspective. Because it's easy to tell our story, but how good is it? How does it compare to everyone else?
So I want to give the folks that are here a quick, like 30-second warning that I'm going to be asking you to join the conversation for the last third of our talk. And so if you've got questions or thoughts percolating, try to gather them now as I do a little bit of a transition here to give you time to think of those questions so it doesn't go out into crickets when I ask. But one of the things that I wanted to flip to, just to give this a little bit of context, will this work anymore? Or not if... I have to open it by doing what? No? He's going to do it for me. So when it gets there. So the thing I was going to set up is, so last week, and if I do that, will that work? No. So last week, at the Clinton Global Initiative, President Clinton welcomed my partner on stage to give him a good handshake to basically sort of lift up the B Corp movement as something sort of worthy of that platform, and to talk about B Corps as a global movement, and to sort of honor the commitment that B Lab has made with Sistema Bay to help build the B Corp movement in 2013, and specifically through the launch of our South American partnership. And right now there are about 630 B Corps around the world across 60, 70 different industries, and now 16 countries. And that sounds all well and good, but it's also like, totally tiny and in many ways irrelevant. And I'm just curious, as a setup question for any of you, and then invite the audience, is how does a community of 600 businesses become a movement of 6,000? And how do those 6,000 businesses influence, the millions of other companies in the world, all of whom we'd like to invite to use their business models to help solve a social or environmental problem or create a great place to work? What's needed, not just to get a pat on the back from the president and an attaboy, but to actually scale something so that there is something that we could justifiably say, thank you for that, that we could say is a global movement. Because right now we're talking about it, but it may not really be there. And so I'm curious from your perspectives, like what's needed to scale this thing?
I think that we must work in the communications of this, not about the movement or about the purpose of the targets, but the impact that is creating. Mm-hmm. Because people today do not want to receive news about things. They want to be informed. They will look the way to be informed. So if people start thinking that there is a real impact, this is not how you say, moda?
A style?
Style, yeah.
Right, a trend.
It's not cool. It's something that is working and it's creating impact.
Right.
People will be attracted. People need something to follow. Mm-hmm. And I think that impact is the key factor, is the key variable to be measured and communicate.
Yep, I think that's a good point. Nat or Gonzalo, you have anything that you want to share?
Well, for me, the situation is that those companies exist. Those 600,000 that you're dreaming about, they exist.
Yep.
We have to encourage them to be visible and to put them together.
Yep.
I'm surprised about what's going on actually in South America with Sistema B in the different countries. The huge emotion that we have raised just by letting those people get together, know each other, and be identified by a logo. I mean, and a view of the new system that the economy needs.
if any Americans or maybe there are other people who've seen the movie Field of Dreams, anybody? It's an old movie. Yeah, a couple people. It's a baseball movie about a crazy guy who mows down a cornfield in Iowa because he hears a voice that says, if you build it, they will come. And he creates a baseball field, and all these sort of ghosts come and play baseball, and he meets his dad, and it's a very heartwarming movie. But the relevant point to this is sort of the if you build it, they will come. Sort of if you create a place for these sort of high impact entrepreneurs to gather, to not just tell a good story, but to have like the standards to back it up, that it creates a gravitational force that attracts new entrepreneurs. Like there's now a couple hundred, I think, companies in Chile alone that are on track to become B Corps over the next year. And there are B Corps coming to our thing later on this week from Mongolia, which is quite stunning to me. And it's mostly just because sort of if you build it, they will come. Like, right. And as that happens, other things are showing up to help support that movement because it's more easily identifiable and it feels like it's backed up by real standards. So I wanted to just open it up, if I could, and see if there's any comments or questions or thoughts that anybody out here would like to add to the conversation. Yes, please. And maybe if you could identify yourself and maybe what organization you're with or where you're from, that would be helpful.
Sure, yeah, I'm Jeff. I'm from DC. I'm a consultant, so I work with a few different organizations. But I think a lot about particularly B-Lab, B Corps. And I think one of the common criticisms which you guys touched on is that it's a lot of marketing or it's about marketing. Yep. And one of you said, I don't remember the exact phrase, but we're drawing a line in the market. We're carving out our space. And I'm wondering, one, why you have to do that, and two, wouldn't it, it seems like you're doing that for investors, for consumers to show that, yes, we are really, really about this. What if we could flip that and, to create this movement to try to educate the investors, the consumers, the whomever to say, oh, this is what a company should be all about, and have the accountability go through that way. I'm just, in my mind, that's more of a movement, really more effective.
So going through, when you say the accountability go through that way, what was that referring to?
To educate the consumer, to educate the investors, for them to know, like, okay, this is, for lack of a better word, a B Corp, without having, to go through that corporate colonoscopy that It
is a powerful metaphor, isn't it?
Yes, I will remember that forever.
I apologize.
No, thank you. For the onus to be on the corporation is essentially what I'm saying.
Yeah. Nat, you want to jump in?
Sure, absolutely. And I think, to be specific and separate this movement from the CSR, CSI approach, where it's a lot of corporations are really moving in that direction, but there's a special carve out for those that are even more than that. That this is a very top-down approach to impact. It's not just kind of a separate division that makes the company look a little bit better, has a bit more of an approach in support of the community. That this really is unique. And I think from our end, everyone likes to think, well, this is good because it's going to help you get investment. And may lead to that, it may not. I think ultimately it'd be nice to even just get some tax reference, recognition from that. We're in between a for-profit and nonprofit, doing some of the work potentially of the government. That could be recognized, but this is that first step in that direction. So I think that there is value in carving this out specifically that's independent.
There's somebody else in the audience, Juan Pablo, with Sistema Bay, who leads the Sistema Bay effort, and you had shared with me over dinner last night, I thought, a pretty amazing story about a company, I think it was in Chile, it may have been somewhere else in South America. Maybe you could share that story about what the impact of it was been as they identified themselves as a B Corp?
Yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Juan Pablo from Sistema B. So most of corporations that are becoming B Corps are doing it because they believe in the movement, but also they're seeing some market and non-market opportunities on this. And one example of one in Chile is that they got a fund from the government to build solar panels. And the main reason why they got that fund to build in social houses is because they were a B Corp. And it wasn't part of the rules of the games, but of
Right.
course it added so much value, and it was almost $1 million of procurement.
Wow.
So, so that's amazing.
That is pretty amazing. So I think there was thank you. I think you were saying there was somebody maybe in the back who had a question or a comment?
I have a question. My name's John. I live here. I'm an entrepreneur, but I also work for a bunch of different governments. I've just got back from the country of Uruguay, and I'm interested in South America on a tactical level. I think you mentioned it before, something about I'm trying to understand how the cool factor comes in, because I'm doing a project for the government there to get entrepreneurs and IT people involved with agriculture and socially responsible problems, but the cool factor isn't there. They want to work on Google and Amazon and advertising, and when I bring in the farmers, there's a big cultural gap. So I'm curious about how you've been working this issue in Chile, which is a similar environment.
I must say my experience, and it has a lot to do with the moment when we became a B Corp. Actually, I'm receiving between 2 and 3 normally young people visiting me and saying, this is not bio, and this is what I earned last month. I would like to work in your company for half the income that I'm receiving actually. Just because it's a B Corp and I understand, and I understand what you're doing, and I understand what the company will give me in terms of personal value. And as we also teach in different universities in South America, we have been noticing that amazingly. I mean, young people saying, this is a movement that will allow me to be a better person in my labor conditions, and that will align me a lot in terms of what I expect from the world, not having to leave the soul at home while going to work. That's something that I've been seeing a lot in all South America, and especially in Chile. Absolutely, and Juan Pablo might also say, and Virginia here, and Manuel from Colombia, many companies in Chile that are being created, in South America, that are being created as a B Corp. People will say, I have this idea, and I really would like this to be a B Corp from the beginning, because this makes all the sense, not only for me, also for the people that I want to work with, but also because there's a huge opportunity with my clients.
I think one of the things, just building on, I think it was Jeff who mentioned earlier sort of the notion of accountability and the why of this, to differentiate yourself with investors or with consumers, or in the case of Juan Pablo's example, with potential not like individual human consumers like you and me, but with the government who wants to work with companies that are creating benefits for their community, not just for themselves. But I think one of the other aspects that Gonzalo's touching on here, we have found is more and more important to more companies, is recognizing that the first key constituency that you're reaching with this is talent. You know, there's sort of if we think about culture is global, capital is global, talent is increasingly global. For God's sake, Nat has been traveling around 40 countries. He's from Colorado. He's working in Kenya, right? So he's got to be attracted to do something. Talent is mobile. And so if you want to attract and retain the best talent, how do you give them an opportunity to make money and make a difference and express their whole selves? And increasingly, this just becomes an easy signal, no different than flashing your lights if you're driving a foreign car on the freeway or something like that. Like a way to flash your light and say, oh, that's, you're one of us. Like, this is a place that you're going to find, that you're going to be able to sort of bring your whole self to work and reach your full potential, not just as a producer, but as a human being. Yeah, I think something in the back.
Yeah, hey, I was going to respond to that comment in the front row as well, Jay. My name's Tim, and I actually run B Corp. The company was founded in 1957, and we have about 150 employees in Canada mostly. So I work with like a dozen executives who, just the question about without this, corporate colonoscopy, how can we, can't we just get this into all the corporations around? Like, like I work with, the people that I work with haven't been, they don't think impact first, they don't think like they, but having gone through the impact assessment and also having been selected as one of the companies to get audited this year, it's starting to become more a deep part of our consciousness. But that accountability, without something as kind of severe and structured as the impact assessment, is like, honestly, it's never going to penetrate a corporation that's being run by, 40, 50-year-old, like, boomers and Gen Xers that really haven't been raised to understand, viewing the world and viewing their businesses in this way. So I think it's a great catalyst to help drive that transformation. Hopefully that helps answer your question.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Any other questions? I think we've got time for one more. Yeah, right here.
Hi, I'm Maneto from Avina Foundation, and we are partner of Alfredo and the center, and support the System B and the whole movement. But I in the work with Alfredo, I started to think about what if we take this, the B Corp movement a little bit upstream and start thinking about B patents. Because one of the challenges that the center has, so once you develop the technology, it's how you assure you want it to be adopted large scale. You want to have an impact. You want to get big companies to take the technology to the market in big ways, but you want to also make sure that the social impact is there. And the only way to do that is to work on licensing agreements and the way you structure the patent that allows for the social impacts to be realized. So I think one of the things that I think the movement should start thinking about is how to structure the patent process, and I think we can attract a lot of scientists, research centers that would be interested in structuring the way the patent systems work to make sure that the potential benefits of these technologies to humanity can be realized. So maybe Alfredo can talk a little bit about his experience on patents and the challenges there, and how the center is thinking about making sure that this knowledge can be used to its full potential in terms of social impact.
So thank you for that. So Alfredo, as you're thinking about that, I think we've only got like another minute or so, and so if you have anything you'd like to say about that, I think that would be great. And then I'm just going to ask you all if you have any sort of final thoughts that you'd want to share with everybody before we have to sign off.
I want to make a short remark. It's a personal thing.
Please.
I'm doing this for a very selfish reason. I want to sleep well at night. And I see the news, I walk over the street, and I don't like what I'm seeing. And by doing my best effort and doing what I'm doing with all what I can, with all my best effort, and that makes me in peace, and I'm sleeping well. And I think that this movement, if we really focus on the impact, we will provide peace, not dollars. Dollars will come later. And I really, really believe that this is a huge opportunity, and I thanks the B system to invite us to be part and to be here, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, what helps me sleep at night too, knowing that it's out there, and I hope that we can maybe even bring some of the technology to Kenya, both from both of yours. We're happy to work with that. I think looking at the movement, maybe we have the Facebook effect. You get a small group that's involved in it, that's secluded, that's close knit, and then as people start to see the value that's involved in it, it expands. I hope we can get to that stage. But something else I want to just quickly say too is we're doing what we're doing profitably. I think as a business, I think that the dollars are important, that we can do this sustainably, that we can return value back to our investors, as well as have that social impact, because it's just both parts of our mission.
That's an important point. Thanks for making it.
That point is evident. I mean, it's not about if profit is good or bad. It's about why do you work, and that's what Alfredo said as well. I want to be aligned with my values. I believe that the good values are absolutely global. It's about ethics. I mean, I'm sure about those values are common to the people. And then it's not only about why do you do what you do, it's about how you do it, and then the movement is so important. And then it will come to you about what do you do with those profits, right? So the movement will allow us to work and walk together in this path, but letting us understand that this ethic and this value is absolutely global.
Thank you. So I really appreciate all of you spending the time here with all of us today and taking the time to come all the way here from the far reaches of the world, and the folks that were here from the Philippines and Brazil and India and Argentina and Japan in the audience. Thank you all for being here at SOCAP and for being a part of this panel. And so give yourselves a round of applause for being a part of a movement that's going to help you define what it means to be successful in business. Thank you.